1 in 4 combat veterans from Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder or brain trauma. Most veterans recover within 6 months. However, a significant number have to deal with the nightmares, flashbacks, hypervigilance, and anxiety on the roadway. Multiple deployments have only exacerbated the situation. In 2012, 40,000 combat veterans will have returned to New York. Some use alcohol, a legal drug, to quell the symptoms and nightmares related to post-traumatic stress. Drunken driving arrests place these heroes into the criminal justice system, which cannot provide the treatment that they need. Society demands that repeat drunk drivers be incarcerated. More returning veterans are being caught in the net of increased drunk and impaired driving enforcement. County jails are becoming holding cells for suffering combat veterans. This documentary depicts the ordeal of Specialist Andre Leduc of C Company, 1st Brigade, 10th Mountain Division, U.S. Army, Operation Iraqi Freedom. Andre had a clear mission as a medic in the Green Zone, but once he returned home, his mission changed to surviving the Second Front.
Soldiers coming back who have conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, studies have shown that they don't readily seek help that's available to them, to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Instead, they engage in self-medication through alcohol consumption. And it really is important for us to spread awareness that there are these resources for them to address these problems that they have. As a district attorney, I see a pattern of alcohol consumption and arrest for drunk driving with our veterans and repeated instances. This is not the same pattern that we see with our civilian citizens. It is distinct, and it is alarming in that with our veterans, it is an increasing number in a short period of time.
Specialist 4th Class Andre Leduc came to me after spending about a year in his apartment upon return from Iraq. His wife was still deployed there, and he was really concerned because he had been doing a lot of driving and drinking, and his attorney was not very familiar with his condition, and he was looking to get some help because he was getting ready to go to court in Jefferson County and also in Oswego County. He was attending the Veterans Hospital in Syracuse and also the Vet Center in Watertown, but they weren't really checking on him in his apartment, and he was becoming more and more reclusive. So we went through a lot of stuff with him. I assigned an advocate to him, and he made it through court in Jefferson County fine, but they're kind of used to dealing with PTSD, and they have Fort Drum and the military post, so it was a very different story. By the time he got down to Oswego County, there's less information on that, and they saw that he had been drinking while driving and ended up putting him in jail as a result.
In a year and a half, Andre had 4 DWIs. I personally came in to meet Andre after that time period. They had all occurred before I even met Andre. The only time he shared about his DWIs with me was the time when he was on his way to the VA Medical Center to get treatment.
When I first saw Specialist Andre Leduc, he was in the 10th Mountain Division, the judge of the court decided he needed to be on a pretrial release program, is where when someone, before they are convicted of a crime such as DWI, if they don't look like they're going to abscond, which means leave or recommit a crime, they put them on what's called pretrial release, which that person would report to me as the pretrial release probation officer. When I would be speaking to him, when he'd report to me, I would just give him more time oftentimes than I would others, because I realized the things that he was going through. This is somebody who was really suffering, and so I would give him the extra time. I'd let him cry. I'd let him continue on until he'd regain his composure. And I didn't do anything any differently than any other brother in arms would have done. I realized this is a man who had suffered post-traumatic stress syndrome, and when I found out that he was a medic, I really understood then, because I've noticed throughout my time in the military how the medics above and beyond others go through so much more even as the battlefield goes forward, and sometimes the troops that are fighting the battle goes forward, that medic is stuck there with that person that's wounded. They're trying to stop the bleeding. They're trying to maybe even put limbs back on. They're listening to this soldier screaming. And they're telling this soldier that everything's going to be okay, when sometimes it's not going to be okay. And the medics, above all, see these things, and they suffer these things. And sometimes it's really tough for them to be able to deal with.
The whole reason behind the self-medication is relief. Relief from anxiety, relief from the nightmares. The only way to get sleep is to medicate yourself to the point of passing out, complete inebriation. I would be up for weeks at a time if it wouldn't be for drinking. I'd be delirious. I would be awake for so long sometimes that I would be at the point of hallucinations. And a man at hallucinating with hypervigilance is at a very dangerous state. So it's almost the only option. And then it leads to nothing good. I mean, it led to my DWIs. So without proper treatment, it's a very dangerous situation.
Andre used alcohol to escape. And because of that alcohol use, he ended up 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time I had him, he had 4 DWIs because of trying to escape into the bottom of the bottle. And the reason for that is oftentimes before someone is even sentenced, they end up getting out on bail, or they get back behind the wheel of a car again. Andre, before he was basically had the opportunity to even be sentenced by his first DWI, he had obtained 4 because he kept trying to escape into the bottom of the bottle. And even, I think sometimes at his 4th DWI, if I'm not mistaken, he got it actually going to get help, that he had gotten into his car because he was so down in the dumps. He'd gotten into his car and was going to go to the VA clinic for help. And that's when he got picked up for his 4th DWI. When he would come in here, I had him on pretrial release. The judge let him out, and the stipulation was that he did not drink. And while he was on probation, he didn't drink. He would come in with his advocate. He would talk with me, and the things I kept stressing to him is, you cannot drink. You cannot drink. And while he was on, that was working. He was getting the help, and I thought that everything was going to work out for Andre, because I really felt that he was beginning to deal with his post-traumatic stress without trying to cover up his feelings and his hurt with alcohol. And I really thought that he was improving and things were going to work out for him.
I realized probably after the 2nd arrest, around the time of the 3rd arrest, that this was not just a matter of somebody who drinks too much. It's not unusual for people to get 2 DWIs. When I was representing him, I was representing a lot of people who got DWIs, and to have 2 in a row was not all that unusual. When the 3rd one hit, I knew that this is extraordinary. Something else is going on here. It's very extraordinary to have 3 arrests, because the consequences of the first 2 usually make people stop, or their family members help make them stop. But when the 3rd one hit, I knew that this was extraordinary.
I was still drinking vodka, and at this point my wife was deployed, so it was a very lonely time. I had no friends, no family, no help. It was a desperate situation. I didn't know quite what to do with myself. So I was basically alone with the PTSD, and that was it. It was a scary, scary time.
Andre was driving illegally because after his first arrest, with the laws as it is, if you test over .08, they suspend your license and they don't allow you to drive except to and from work. And therefore, since his first arrest, his privilege to operate a motor vehicle was suspended. And after his second arrest, they don't give you any conditions under which you can drive. Unfortunately, the nearest medical treatment for him is 70 miles away, and there's no way to get there except to drive.
For people in my situation, there is hope. Are they going to suffer? Yes. You will suffer. But you will come out of it. Don't give up. There will be bad times. But if you stick through it and you go with the programs and you do the medication and the therapy, you stand a good chance of recovery.
The irony is that when Andre finally hit rock bottom and was ready to get help and made the effort to drive down to the VA center to admit himself, that he ended up ultimately in jail, being kept from all of his medication and all of the assistance and support that could have probably started to get him on the road to recovery.
I thought about him frequently after my legal relationship with him ended, because I wanted to see if he could get clean and sober and get on with his life and move on. And I was very saddened to hear of his death.
There seems to be a thought among veterans that the county jails, the local jails, are becoming the new vet centers. Once you get away from a military post, the fact is they were drinking and driving, they're ending up in jail. And then there's no intervention that's happening for them in a county jail. So I think it's probably becoming an extraordinary problem where that time could probably be used to help with recovery. And it simply is really putting everything back for the individual.
I was very pleasantly surprised to see the growth of veterans courts in New York State, starting a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I was very pleased that in the 3rd Judicial District we were able to start a veterans track in existing treatment courts. To get this set up and to get people treatment facilities, treatment programs, professionals ready for what I think is going to be a growing need to address the issues of veterans as they come back from Iraq and Afghanistan. I think that the combat trauma, the PTSD, the traumatic brain injury, the symptoms that are now being more diagnosed, military is becoming more aware of these medical and mental health issues. While the military may not be addressing them completely, I've seen a major growth in the response of the VA. I think that they are to be commended for the way that they have been and are now responding to veterans' needs.
Buffalo Veterans Treatment Court began in January of 2008. Specialist Andre LeDuc was incarcerated in Oswego County, which did not have a vet court. Vet courts today are being initiated throughout New York State. The 3rd Judicial District has initiated a drug court. The primary offense is drunk driving. Deaths similar to Andre's are preventable. Specialist Andre LeDuc today would be eligible for a vet track or vet court program.
Oh no, mom's calling.
That's fine.